1,500 words. The Nexus station trembled under the distant hum of the Vekal fleet. From the observation deck, Captain Elena Ward could see the dark ships gathering at the edge of the star system, like shadows preparing to strike. The humans were exhausted, but their resolve had never been stronger. Inside the cargo bay, preparations were underway for the final confrontation. Jacob and his engineers worked frantically to restore as much power as possible, rerouting systems to give the humans an advantage. Aaron and the soldiers checked their weapons and coordinated strategies, while civilians carried supplies and set up medical stations for the wounded. Elena walked among them, surveying every face. "Tonight," she said, her voice steady, "we show the galaxy what it means to fight, not just for ourselves but for everyone who has ever been told they were helpless. We stand and we will not break. Do you understand?" "Yes," the group shouted in unison. Their voices echoed through the bay, defying the oppressive shadow of the Vekal. The first breach came with a sudden crash. Massive claws tore through the station walls and the Vekal poured into the corridors. Their psychic aura slammed into the humans like a tidal wave, threatening to crush their minds. Some of the civilians gasped, stumbling under the pressure. Elena stepped forward. "Hold your ground! Focus on each other, not them!" The humans responded with unwavering courage. Soldiers fired precise bursts of energy at the invaders. Jacob manipulated the station systems, activating emergency doors that slammed into enemies and creating barriers of electrified metal. Civilians hurled makeshift explosives, knocked over crates and blocked pathways. Aaron led a small squad through a side corridor, flanking the invaders. They struck from behind, catching the creatures off guard. Each enemy that fell boosted morale, proving that courage could fight the impossible. The Vekal commander appeared once more, larger and darker than ever. Its eyes glowed with pure rage as it surveyed the humans. Its aura of fear intensified, stronger than any they had felt before. Even so, the humans did not flinch. Elena raised her rifle. "We are not afraid of you," she shouted. "Your fear will not control us." The commander hissed, swinging its jagged spear. Elena dodged, rolling aside as Aaron and the others struck in unison. Sparks flew as metal clashed with armor, and the corridor was filled with the roar of battle. Despite the enemy's power, the humans' teamwork was unstoppable. Jacob triggered another trap, opening vents to release bursts of superheated gas. Invaders were thrown back, some stumbling into electrified floors. Civilians coordinated with soldiers to form makeshift choke points, herding the enemies into the station's own defenses. Then came a moment of daring brilliance. Mara, the older civilian who had once cowered in fear, spotted a series of exposed conduits along the walls. She gestured to Jacob. "If we overload them, we can take out the group behind the commander." Jacob grinned. "Good thinking. Let's do it." With precise coordination, the humans triggered the overload. Sparks and flames shot from the conduits, knocking the invaders back. The commander roared in anger, momentarily blinded by the chaos. Elena seized the chance. She led a strike team directly at the commander, dodging its spear and striking at weak points in the armor. Aaron and the soldiers followed her lead, working in perfect synchrony. The battle raged through the corridors and into the central command ring. Systems flashed and alarms blared, but the humans pressed forward. Even civilians joined the fight, hurling explosives or blocking paths. Their fear had transformed into determination, their panic replaced with courage. One by one, the Vekal fell. The commander fought fiercely, but it was clear that the humans were no ordinary prey. Every strategy, every trap, every act of bravery was pushing the invaders back. Finally, Elena aimed her rifle at the commander's chest. Aaron fired from the side, while Jacob activated a nearby system to seal a door behind the enemy, cutting off its escape. The commander stumbled, glowing eyes wide with shock. "You cannot," it hissed, voice strained. "Yes, we can," Elena shouted, charging forward. "Because we stand together." With a coordinated strike, the humans drove the commander to its knees. Sparks flew, and its weapon clattered to the ground. The aura of fear faded, and for the first time the invaders hesitated. The Vekal commander looked around, seeing not frightened prey, but defiant warriors united by courage. For centuries, fear had been its weapon, its key to domination. Now in the Nexus station, fear had failed. Elena lowered her rifle, her chest heaving. "This is what it means to fight," she said softly. "Not for glory, not for power, but because we will not be broken." Around her, humans cheered, hugged, and tended to the wounded. Civilians who had once cowered now stood tall, realizing that courage could be stronger than terror. Even a few alien refugees stepped forward, inspired by the humans' defiance. Through the observation window, the Vekal fleet could be seen retreating into the blackness of space. Their ships, once a symbol of unstoppable power, now appeared hesitant, uncertain. Elena turned to her team, smiling despite the exhaustion. "We did it," she said. "We held the station. We showed them what humans and unity can do." Aaron laughed, wiping soot from his face. "They'll never expect us again." Jacob nodded. "And maybe other worlds will rise too. They'll see that fear isn't undefeatable." Mara placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. "We proved it. We really proved it." Elena's eyes softened as she looked at the team. "Yes, and the galaxy will remember this night. Not because we fought, but because we stood. When everyone else ran in terror, we stood our ground. The station was damaged and repairs would take weeks, maybe months. But morale was at its highest. Humans had survived the impossible. They had faced fear itself and emerged victorious. In the aftermath, messages were sent across the galaxy. Images of the human defenders, their clever traps, and their courage spread quickly. Species who had once cowered in fear began to speak of resistance, hope, and unity. A legend was born. Even the wounded smiled, knowing that their suffering had meaning. They had shown the universe a new truth. Fear could be challenged and courage could conquer. Elena walked to the observation deck, looking out at the retreating fleet. Stars shone brightly in the void, and somewhere in the distance a new dawn was rising across countless worlds. Her voice was soft, yet firm. The Vekal thought fear would make the galaxy theirs. They were wrong. Humanity stood, and together we can face anything. The team gathered behind her, exhausted but alive, ready to rebuild, ready to defend, and ready to face whatever came next. In the shadows of the cosmos, the story of that night traveled far and wide. Every species that heard it felt a spark of hope. If humans could resist, then anyone could. If humans could fight, then the galaxy could rise, and the legend endured. When everyone ran in terror, the humans stood their ground. The battle was won. Humanity had shown its true strength, and the universe would never forget it. The galaxy was vast and ancient. For thousands of years, countless alien empires had risen and fallen. Among them stood the Ziran Empire, feared by all and respected by none. The Zirans believed only in power. To them, mercy was weakness, and peace was simply a pause between wars. Humanity, on the other hand, was still considered a young race. Barely a few centuries had passed since Earth's people had built faster-than-light ships and stepped into the stars. To many of the older civilizations, humans were curiosities, innovative, passionate, but untested. That perception would change forever. The summit on Vero Station, the grand summit of species, was being held on Vero Station, a neutral ground orbiting a quiet blue star. Delegates from across the galaxy had gathered, discussing trade routes, border disputes, and fragile alliances. For the humans, it was an honor to be invited. Ambassador Elias Ward, tall and calm, stood proudly at the human delegation's table. Beside him was his daughter, Ava, a child of only 10 years. She had begged to come with him, excited to see the wonders of alien life. Her wide eyes followed every strange creature that passed, towering insectoids with gleaming shells, floating beings wrapped in light, and scaled warriors clad in heavy armor. The delegates whispered when they saw her. In their eyes, humans were strange enough, but bringing a child to such an important summit seemed foolish. Yet Elias wanted to show the galaxy that humanity had nothing to hide. Humans were not just warriors or traders. They were families, dreamers, and caretakers of the future. For 2 days, the summit passed peacefully. Treaties were argued over. Deals were signed, and humanity's voice was slowly being heard. Then came the 3rd day, when the Ziran delegation arrived, the arrogance of the Empire. The Zirans entered the hall with heavy footsteps, their armor gleaming like obsidian. At their head was Lord Calith, a noble of the Empire known for his cruelty. His sharp eyes scanned the room not with curiosity but with contempt. To him, every other species was beneath the Zirans. When his gaze fell on Ava, he smirked. A child? Calith's voice was low but carried across the chamber. The humans bring children to matters of state? How fitting for a race that still clings to weakness. Elias stepped forward, his tone controlled but firm. My daughter is here to witness the unity of species. We believe peace is something all generations should learn. Calith's smirk deepened. He approached the table where Ava sat, towering over her. She shrank back, but her father placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Peace, Calith sneered. Peace is the dream of the powerless. Then, in a deliberate act meant to humiliate, he reached out and shoved the child to the floor. Ava gasped as she stumbled, her small hands scraping against the polished surface. The hall went silent. Elias rushed to her side, fury in his eyes. But before he could speak, Calith laughed. See how fragile they are? This is what humans are, children pretending to be equals. The shock across the hall. For a moment, no one moved. Delegates from 100 species stared in disbelief. Violence within the summit chamber was forbidden, and yet the Xiran noble had acted without fear. Some alien envoys looked away, unwilling to challenge the Empire. Others whispered nervously, knowing the humans would not take this lightly. Elias lifted Ava into his arms. Her eyes were wet, not from the small scrape, but from the humiliation. She whispered, Papa, why did he do that? Elias swallowed his anger and spoke gently, because he thinks cruelty is strength. But remember, Ava, he is wrong. He turned to the council, his voice carrying with iron resolve. You have all seen this. A child, an innocent child, has been harmed before your eyes. If this is what the Empire calls strength, then humanity will show the galaxy what true strength means. Calith only laughed louder. Then come, little humans, show us. We will break you as easily as we broke your child's spirit. But in that moment, something far greater than Calith's arrogance had been unleashed. The message spreads. The incident was recorded by countless devices. Within hours, the image of Ava being struck down by a Xiran noble spread across every communication network in the galaxy. Billions watched as a child was pushed aside like nothing, her small form crumpling against the floor. For humans, the reaction was immediate and universal. Across Earth and the colonies, outrage boiled into fury. From miners on Mars to engineers orbiting Titan, from farmers on New Terra to soldiers stationed at the Rim, the message was clear. No one touches a human child and goes unpunished. The cry rose on every world. Remember Ava. Protect our own. Humanity will not bow. The Council of Earth on Earth, the leaders of the United Human Nations gathered in emergency session. The President of Earth spoke, her voice steady but filled with anger. The Empire has shown its hand. They believe we are weak. They believe they can harm us without consequence. They are wrong. We will answer not with words but with the strength we have hidden for generations. Around the council table, admirals and generals nodded grimly. Humanity had always known the galaxy was dangerous. While their outward face was one of diplomacy and exploration, in secret they had prepared. For decades, shipyards hidden within asteroid belts and nebulae had worked in silence. Factories deep, beneath Earth's oceans and the moons of Jupiter had forged weapons not for conquest, but for survival. Now those weapons would rise. The Hidden Armada. The First Order was sent through encrypted channels. Across the human sphere, codes long dormant were activated. On Luna, massive hangar doors slid open, revealing rows of black-hulled warships. On Titan, the icy crust cracked as hidden silos launched ships into orbit. In the asteroid belt, entire rock faces split apart, unfolding into shipyards the galaxy had never seen before. The Dreadnoughts stirred. Each one was a mountain of steel and fire, bristling with weapons powerful enough to tear fleets apart. And there were not hundreds, nor thousands. There were 500,000. These ships had been humanity's greatest secret, built under the belief that one day someone would test them. That day had come. The Oath in orbit above Earth, Admiral Rain Carter stood on the bridge of the flagship Iron Resolve, Her eyes scanned the massive fleet assembling before her. She opened a channel to every human ship, every soldier, every citizen. They harmed a child. One of ours. Remember that. We do not fight for conquest. We do not fight for pride. We fight because the Empire must learn that humanity protects its own, no matter the cost. Today we launch for Ava. Tomorrow we stand as one race, unbroken. A roar of voices answered across the comms. For Ava. For humanity. The beginning of retribution. As the Dreadnoughts prepared to depart, the galaxy trembled. Alien observers watched in disbelief. The humans, so young a race, were revealing power greater than the oldest empires had ever imagined. The Zirans had made one mistake. They had thought humanity's compassion was weakness. They had thought harming a child would go unanswered. But now the stars themselves would burn with the fury of a united people. And so began the march of 500,000 dreadnoughts. The spark had been lit. The storm was coming. The spark had been lit, and it spread like fire across the stars. The moment Ava's image appeared, her small form pushed down by the hand of a Ziran noble, something deep inside every human stirred. On colony worlds and distant mining stations, and even on ships traveling between systems, people stopped what they were doing. They stared at the broadcast, their jaws clenched, their hearts heavy. It was no longer about politics or treaties. It was about something far greater. A child had been harmed, and not just any child, a human child. Humanity's pride, their love, their very identity had been challenged. The decision was made not in silence, but in a chorus of voices. Humanity would rise. Humanity would show the galaxy that to harm one of them was to face them all. Factories awaken on Earth, the cradle of humankind. Factories that had long built civilian starships suddenly shifted their purpose. Massive machines whirred to life, producing armor plating, plasma coils, and weapon systems at incredible speed. Workers labored day and night, not because they were forced, but because they chose to. In the shipyards above Mars, giant arms lifted completed sections of dreadnought hulls into place. Thousands of engineers, pilots, and technicians swarmed the stations like ants building a fortress. The red planet glowed brighter as reactors powered up, preparing for war. On Titan, Saturn's great moon, icy plains split open as hidden underground bases activated. Entire shipyards rose from beneath the frozen surface, releasing fleets that had been sleeping for decades. The ground shook as launch doors opened, and massive ships ascended into the blackness of space. Even in the most distant colonies, on worlds like Epsilon Prime and New Terra, people worked together. Farmers sent food shipments to the fleets. Miners dug deeper into their planets for resources. Children painted banners with the words "For Ava" and sent them to soldiers across the stars. The mobilization was not just military. It was personal. Every human, no matter how far from Earth, felt that this war belonged to them. The Council's declaration in the Great Hall of the United Human Nations Council, leaders stood before a crowd of reporters and citizens. The President spoke, her voice carried on every channel, every device, every ship. "My brothers and sisters of Earth and the colonies," she said, "the Ziran Empire has struck at us in the cruelest way. They harmed a child, a symbol of our future, our hope. They thought this act would break us, but they do not understand humanity." Her eyes blazed as she lifted her hand. "We will not bow. We will not falter. Today we awaken the Dreadnoughts. Today humanity marches to show the galaxy that we protect our own." The hall erupted in applause. Across every screen, humans cheered, wept, and raised their fists. The message was clear. They were united. The fleet assembles Admiral Rain Carter, commander of the United Human Fleet, stood on the command deck of the flagship Iron Resolve. She watched as ship after ship aligned into formation. Her officers reported numbers in awe. "Admiral, Sector 3 has completed launch. 50,000 dreadnoughts ready." "Admiral, Sector 7 reports 100,000 dreadnoughts in position." "Admiral, the Luna Yards confirm activation of the Titan-class battleships." The scale was staggering. Other empires considered themselves mighty if they had 1,000 capital ships. The Ziran Empire itself could field perhaps 20,000 at its strongest. But humanity had been preparing in silence. Their dreadnoughts were not just ships. They were titans of steel, bristling with weapons that could shatter fleets. And now, 500,000 of them gathered. Rain looked at the endless rows of ships outside her viewport. Their hulls reflected the starlight, forming a sea of fire and steel that stretched as far as the eye could see. She whispered, "This is not an army. This is a storm." Voices of unity among the soldiers. There was no fear, only determination. On board the Silver Horizon, a young pilot named Kai Donovan prepared his fighter craft. His squadron would escort dreadnoughts into battle. He spoke to his crew. "Remember why we fight. Not for medals, not for glory, but for every child who deserves to grow up without fear." In the mess hall of the Valiant Dawn, engineers painted Ava's name across the side of their ship. One of them, a quiet woman named Lena, said, "Every time we see her name, we'll remember. We'll make sure no one forgets." On the colony world of Epsilon Prime, children recorded messages for the soldiers. "Come home safe. Win for Ava. Win for all of us." These recordings were played on the Dreadnoughts before launch, strengthening the resolve of every crew member. It was not just a fleet preparing for war. It was an entire species rising as one. Alien reactions across the galaxy. Other species watched in shock. On the trading world of Varos, alien merchants whispered nervously. How could humans build so much without anyone knowing? On the insectoid world of Kirik, a scholar noted, "We thought them children, yet they have built an arsenal greater than the ancients." Even in the hidden chambers of oppressed species under the Empire's rule, whispers of hope spread. Perhaps the humans will be the ones to break the Ziran chains. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to question the Empire's dominance. The Admiral's speech before the fleet departed. Admiral Rain Carter addressed every ship. Her face appeared on every screen. Her voice carried to millions of soldiers. "Brothers and sisters, today we rise not as individuals, not as scattered colonies, but as humanity united. The Empire believes we are weak. They believe harming a child will frighten us. They are wrong. They have awakened a storm." She paused, her eyes burning with conviction. "Look at the ships beside you. Each one is a symbol of our determination. Look at the stars ahead. Each one is a reminder of why we fight. We are not here to conquer, we are here to protect. We are here to make sure no one ever dares harm our children again." The fleet roared back in unison. "For Ava, for humanity." The march begins. Engines flared across the void as 500,000 dreadnoughts powered up. Waves of light streaked across the darkness as the fleet aligned for faster-than-light travel. From Earth, people watched as the skies filled with the glow of departing ships. Families waved, tears in their eyes, proud of the sons and daughters marching into the unknown. In the colonies, celebrations were held as ships departed. Bells rang, songs were sung, and promises were made. Humanity would not return in defeat. The stars trembled as the greatest armada in galactic history began its march, the Empire's response. Meanwhile, on the throne world of the Ziran Empire, the Emperor listened to the reports. His advisors trembled as they described the human fleet. 500,000 dreadnoughts, Majesty. Entire sectors mobilizing. They are marching toward us. The Emperor leaned back in his throne, his face dark with amusement. "Let them come. They are children with toys. We will break them as we always have." But deep inside, even the Emperor felt a flicker of doubt. For never before had any race united so quickly, so fiercely, for a single cause. The oath of humanity, as the fleet disappeared into the stars. Every soldier, every worker, every child whispered the same words. "No one harms us. No one breaks us. We are humanity, and we stand together." And so the march of 500,000 dreadnoughts continued, unstoppable, unyielding. The galaxy would soon learn the cost of touching even one human child. The storm was no longer coming. The storm was here. The galaxy was holding its breath. For days, whispers filled the networks of every world. The humans were on the move. 500,000 dreadnoughts, larger and deadlier than anything the stars had seen, were marching toward the Ziran Empire. Some called it madness. Others called it destiny. But no one denied the truth. Humanity was no longer a silent newcomer. They were a storm. The Empire's arrogance on the throne world of Ziran Prime. The Emperor listened to the reports with narrowed eyes. His court was silent, waiting for his reaction. 500,000 ships, he said slowly, tapping his clawed finger on the armrest. And yet, They are still humans. Still young, still inexperienced. Let them come. Lord Calith, the noble who had harmed the human child, bowed before him. Majesty, allow me to crush them at the Jalros Rift. I will burn their fleet to ash and deliver their flagship to your feet. The Emperor's gaze hardened. Do not fail me, Calith. Show the galaxy what happens when a child race dares to rise against the Empire. Calith smiled with cruel confidence. He commanded 50,000 ships, one of the largest fleets the Empire had ever assembled. To him, it was more than enough. The human fleet advances in the blackness of space. Humanity's armada moved like a wave of steel. Each dreadnought traveled in perfect formation, their engines glowing like stars. Admiral Rain Carter stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve. Around her, dozens of officers worked calmly, their faces hard with focus. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. Admiral, a young officer reported. Scouts confirm the Ziran fleet is holding position at the Jalros Rift. 50,000 ships. Rain's eyes narrowed. 50,000. Against us? She looked at the endless rows of dreadnoughts behind her. They still think numbers alone decide battles. She turned to her crew. Signal the fleet. Prepare for first contact. Today we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. The Rift, the Jalros Rift, was a region of broken space, shattered asteroids, plasma storms, and drifting wreckage from ancient wars. It was a graveyard of past battles, and now it would host another. The Ziran fleet floated at the edge of the rift, dark and menacing. Their ships were sharp and spiked, glowing with crimson energy. Lord Calith stood at the front of his flagship, his smile confident. They come, he said as human signals appeared on his scanners. Bring them into the rift. We will scatter them against the rocks. The battle begins. The two fleets faced each other across the void. Silence filled the airwaves until Admiral Carter's voice broke it. This is Admiral Rain Carter of the United Human Fleet. You harmed one of ours. You harmed a child. We come not as conquerors, but as defenders. Surrender or face our answer. Laughter echoed from Calith's comms. You are bold, little human. But boldness is not strength. Today your species learns its place. Then, with a gesture, Calith ordered his fleet to fire. Thousands of plasma beams lanced across space. The battle had begun. The power of the dreadnoughts, human dreadnoughts, answered with thunder. Their massive rail cannons fired slugs at near light speed, each impact tearing through enemy shields and armor. Plasma lances struck like lightning, burning holes in Ziran cruisers. The rift lit up with fire. Explosions flashed across the dark, each one a sun in miniature. Kai Donovan, the young pilot, soared with his squadron between the dreadnoughts. Target those destroyers, he shouted. His fighters' cannons tore through a Ziran craft, sending it spinning into debris. On the valiant dawn, Lena the engineer watched as her ship's cannons fired volley after volley. She whispered Ava's name under her breath with every shot. The dreadnoughts moved not as scattered ships, but as one machine. Each vessel covered the other, their fire coordinated with terrifying precision. Calith's fury at first, Calith laughed. He thought his ships would overwhelm the humans with numbers and experience. But as the minutes passed, his smile faded. Report, he barked. Lord Calith, his officer stammered. We are losing destroyers at a rate of 30 per minute. Their weapons, our shields cannot hold. Calith's eyes blazed. Press the attack. They are only humans. But the humans were no longer only anything. They were fury made flesh, and their ships were steel brought to life. Turning the tide, Admiral Carter raised her hand. Activate the Titan class. Across the battlefield, larger dreadnoughts emerged. Ships the size of cities, their hulls bristling with weapons. Their arrival shook the Ziran fleet. One Titan fired a barrage of missiles that split into smaller warheads, each finding its target with perfect precision. Another unleashed a plasma wave that swept across dozens of Ziran ships, melting them into slag. The rift was no longer a trap. It was a graveyard being filled again, this time with Ziran wreckage. Voices of resolve on the Iron Resolve, Admiral Carter's comms filled with reports. Admiral, Sector 4 secured. Enemy retreating. Admiral, Titan-class Nova Spear destroyed 23 ships in one volley. Admiral, our loss is minimal. Human fleet holding strong. Carter clenched her fists. This was more than victory. This was a message. Broadcast to the galaxy, she ordered. Show them the truth. Show them that humanity does not kneel. Screens across 100 worlds lit up with the sight of Xiran ships burning, while human dreadnoughts pressed forward like an unstoppable tide. The enemy breaks hours into the battle. The Xiran fleet was collapsing. Calith's officers pleaded with him, "My lord, we cannot hold. Their firepower is beyond calculation." Calith roared in rage. "Cowards! I will not retreat." But even as he spoke, his flagship shook under a barrage of human fire. On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Carter gave the final order. "Focus fire. End this." A dozen dreadnoughts unleashed their cannons. Calith's ship shuddered, cracked, and exploded in a blinding flash. The Xiran noble who had started it all was gone. The Galaxy Watch's news of the battle spread like wildfire. Across alien worlds, beings stared in disbelief. The humans had not only faced the Empire's fleet, they had destroyed it. On oppressed worlds under Xiran rule, whispers grew into shouts. The humans are rising. Perhaps the Empire can be broken. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw the Empire bleed. The aftermath, as the smoke cleared, Admiral Carter stood silently on her bridge. Around her, officers cheered, but she felt only the weight of what had begun. "Losses?" she asked quietly. "Minimal, Admiral. Less than 1%. Carter closed her eyes. "Then it is only the beginning. The Empire will not surrender easily, but now, the galaxy knows who we are." On every human ship, soldiers and crew whispered the same words. "For Ava." A message to the stars. The final act of the day was a transmission sent across the galaxy. Carter appeared on screens, her voice calm but firm. "We are humanity. We do not seek war, but we will not forgive cruelty. The Empire harmed a child. This is our answer. To all who live under the shadow of tyranny, know this. Humanity stands and we will fight for what is right." The message ended. Across the stars, countless beings replayed those words. Some felt hope. Some felt fear. But all understood one thing. The humans were no longer to be ignored. The first clash had ended and humanity had won. But the war was only beginning. The Zalros Rift battle had changed everything. Across the galaxy, species whispered of humanity's power. The Xiran Empire, once untouchable, had been humiliated. Ships that were considered unstoppable had been destroyed. A noble of the Empire, the one who had harmed a human child, had fallen. But for humanity, victory was only the beginning. They did not seek conquest. They sought justice and protection for their own. And the Empire still held countless worlds under its iron rule. Preparing for the offensive, Admiral. Rain Carter stood aboard the Iron Resolve, watching the stars outside. Her fleet, though victorious, needed to regroup. Supplies had to be refilled, wounded crews cared for, and systems repaired, but time was a luxury they did not have. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, "Scouts have located the main Empire sectors. They are reinforcing defenses, but our intelligence indicates many systems are poorly defended after Zalros Rift." Rain nodded. "Good. Prepare the fleet for deep strike operations. Divide into task forces. Each task force will take one sector. Precision and speed are our advantage." Across the human armada, ships stirred with purpose. Engineers repaired massive dreadnoughts. Weapon systems were calibrated and pilots ran simulations for every scenario. Humanity had mastered the art of preparation. Where the Empire relied on brute force and fear, humans relied on coordination, intelligence, and unity. The human spirit on the valiant dawn. Lena looked at the stars through a viewport. She had been part of the fleet since the very beginning, watching the rage and sorrow transform into something stronger. Resolve. "Every world we liberate," she said quietly. "We honor Ava and every human who believes in each other." Kai Donovan nearby nodded. "It's more than that. It's who we are. We fight because we must, because if we do not, no one else will." Across the fleet, similar conversations happened. Soldiers reminded each other why they fought, not for glory, but for unity, for protection, and for justice. This bond was a force no Xiran weapon could break. The first strike, the first human task force, emerged from hyperspace near a Xiran-controlled planet called GalacticPrime. Orbiting the planet were hundreds of defense satellites, turrets, and small capital ships. Admiral Carter addressed the leaders of the task force. GalacticPrime must be neutralized quickly and efficiently. Minimize civilian risk, but we will destroy military targets. Remember, this is not revenge. This is justice and protection. The Dreadnoughts moved like shadows across the void. When the Xiran guns fired, the humans were ready. With precision targeting, the Dreadnoughts destroyed turrets and satellites before they could react. Small fighters carried out surgical strikes on enemy ships. The planet itself shook as orbital bombardments disabled enemy installations without harming cities. Humanity's strategy was clear. Strike hard, strike fast, and keep moral purpose intact. The Empire's reaction on Xiran Prime. News of the attack reached the Emperor. His eyes narrowed. "Humans are in our core systems," he said, his voice low but furious. How did they get past our defenses so easily?" Advisors murmured nervously. "Majesty, they are not fighting like others. They are united, disciplined, and relentless. They strike where we are weak, not where we are strong." The Emperor slammed his claw on the armrest. "Then prepare the counterattack. We cannot allow them to take one more world." But even as fleets moved, the humans were already steps ahead. Their strategy, their coordination, and their unity made them unpredictable. They had learned that raw power was only effective when combined with purpose and intelligence. Deep space raids over the following weeks, human task forces struck dozens of systems. Xiran forces were caught off guard repeatedly. Dreadnoughts moved like steel ghosts, leaving destruction for warships and defenses but sparing civilian populations. On a small moon near Tarion 5, human engineers discovered supply caches intended for Xiran armies. Without hesitation, they disabled the weapons and redistributed supplies to local colonies oppressed by the Empire. Word spread quickly. Humans not only fought for themselves but for everyone under tyranny. The Empire had grown accustomed to fear as a control method. But humans fought differently. They fought for justice, for loyalty, and for the protection of all innocents. This inspired hope in oppressed species who had never dreamed of liberation. A personal reminder: Admiral Carter walked the halls of the Iron Resolve, passing crews preparing for the next wave. Her thoughts often turned to Ava, the child whose suffering had sparked this war. The memory was a reminder of the stakes, not just for humans but for anyone who believed in peace and safety. On the communications deck, a young soldier approached her. "Admiral, the colonies are sending messages. They're asking if we can liberate more systems. They call us the Protectors." Carter smiled softly. "Then we will be their protectors. Every system we save, every child we defend, is proof that humanity will never bow to cruelty." It was not a war for pride or conquest. It was a war for principle. And that principle made them unstoppable. The Empire's desperation. The Xiran Emperor could not ignore the spread of human influence. Entire sectors were being destabilized. Supply lines were destroyed. Military outposts fell. "Prepare the ultimate fleet," he commanded. "I want humans crushed before they reach our core worlds. Use everything. Leave nothing behind. Show them that cruelty cannot be answered with strength." But for the first time in centuries, he sensed uncertainty. No empire had faced a foe like humanity, a race that combined determination, intelligence, and unity. Even Calith's successors, ambitious nobles who took his place, hesitated. The humans had already proven themselves. Their victory at Jalros Rift was only the beginning. An unexpected alliance as humans advanced. They received unexpected communication from other species. Alien worlds oppressed by the Xiran sent envoys offering aid. Ships, supplies, and intelligence arrived. Rain Carter welcomed them. "We do not seek conquest. We seek justice. If you stand with us, you help free the galaxy from cruelty." The alien commanders nodded. "We have suffered too long. The humans fight with honor. We will help." For the first time, a coalition was forming, not from fear but from hope. Humanity's reputation as protectors spread faster than any weapon. The turning point battle. Near the core sector, human fleets encountered one of the Empire's strongest armadas. They were outnumbered but not unprepared. Admiral Carter had studied every tactic, every weakness. "Remember," she said to her captains, "we fight not just for ourselves, but for every life under their shadow." Precision, coordination, unity. The Dreadnoughts moved as one. When the Xirans fired, humans countered with coordinated volleys. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver precise. By the end of the day, the Xiran fleet was in retreat. Human losses were minimal, while the Empire had lost thousands of ships. It was a decisive victory, and it sent a clear message. Humanity would not stop. Hope and fear. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. On worlds under Xiran rule, oppressed species whispered hope. The humans were not conquerors, they were liberators. Even among the neutral species, admiration grew. No one had imagined a young race could strike so effectively, with intelligence, precision, and moral purpose. In the Empire, fear replaced arrogance. The humans were no longer a challenge to dismiss. They were a force to be reckoned with. Humanity's message, Admiral Carter addressed the fleet over the Universal Communication Network. Today, we struck deep into the Empire. We did not do this for glory. We did not do this for conquest. We did this because the Empire harmed one of our own, and we will not allow cruelty to go unpunished. We fight for justice. We fight for protection. We fight for every child, every family, and every life that the Empire seeks to dominate. Across countless worlds, humans heard the message and felt pride, hope, and determination. Humanity was united. Humanity was strong, and the galaxy would never forget the day they took the fight to the Empire's heart. The turning point had arrived. Humanity was no longer reacting. They were taking the initiative. The storm was growing, unstoppable, and the Xerans had only begun to understand the price of their arrogance. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.